So, in Mali, ladies and gentlemen, the situation in Kidal remains very, very stable, with a little bit of escalation from the Malian armed forces. And this time around, we're having the Malian armed forces methodically climbing the escalation ladder, a very, very educated methodology of decapitating the JNIM personnel infrastructure. Ladies and gentlemen, you see, there was an airstrike in the Kidal region today. We can't really clarify what part of Kidal where this onslaught of air sorties was established. But ladies and gentlemen, when you look at the damage assessment on the line of contact, I mean, after that strike, there was no line of contact anymore. Ladies and gentlemen, check this out. Boom, that was it. You know, when you see the strike, there is no noise after that strike. Well, when you study that video clearly, I believe that you still see couple people, you know, I think about 4 moving around and probably getting out of the smoke, but the radius of the strike was devastating. It was a serious decapitation assault. And it is time we talk about the attrition rate of the enemy. I mean, we need to be serious with this attrition rate. This level of decapitation strike is something that really challenge the psychological ideology of the enemy. You know, a lot of fighters that were brainwashed into this need to start asking questions. I mean, where is that 72 virgin conversation taking you to? I mean, this is some inferno right here. You know, you gotta feel the heat before wherever they promise you that you're going to. So ladies and gentlemen, that is how we start in Kidal today. Now, it didn't stop at that. The Russian African Corps has just tipped the escalation ladder a little bit. And now what did they do? There was a military base in the Kidal region, one of the military bases that was evacuated, you know, when the Russian African Corps and the Malian armed forces had a tactical withdrawal from Kidal region. Ladies and gentlemen, the enemies were occupying this base and, you know, but today we were surprised. There were multiple strikes on this base. Now, these are not air strikes. Ladies and gentlemen, these are localized FPV drone strike. You know, we gave you the update yesterday that the Russian African Corps were about deploying the first-person view drone capability to reduce the enemy capability in a certain location. Ladies and gentlemen, it was this military base where the Russian African Corps and the Malian armed forces had a tactical withdrawal. Still in the Kidal region, according to the information we got, the Russian African Corps destroyed every logistic capability that could have served the purpose of enabling a tactical withdrawal or an offensive from the enemy. So it's like paralyzing the enemy logistic infrastructure right where they are. The fuel depot have been taken out, the transport logistical capability have been taken out, the Starlink connection that they have, the antennas have been destroyed. Ladies and gentlemen, it's now a situation of a complete encirclement, and these are long-range FPV capabilities, and the enemies that are encircled in this base have limited supplies, they have no escape routes. Now that their satellites have been taken out, where are they going to get communication tools? Where are they going to get it from? Well, we need to go down to how the recruitment happens. So we've discovered that this is a Western agenda to destabilize Africa, and you don't see the level of crimes that have been committed against African kids. Ladies and gentlemen, you will be surprised at the type of age group that this nefarious elements can go to when it comes to balancing the attrition rate based on the casualty they continue to record on the line of contact. Ladies and gentlemen, look at this picture. Can you see those kids? Yeah, that's how bad it is. So when they invade neighborhoods and they kidnap, they abduct civilians, they look for the smallest ones and they try to restructure and recalibrate their developmental psychology to absorb the Sunni Salafist jihad that turns them from human being and transform them into a mechanical capability for the ultimate destruction. Now, you see, the Malian armed forces continue to carry out their military objective on the line of contact, and with the introduction of the FPV to the battlefield, I think we're about to see a new dramatic shift in the Kidal region in Mali. Now, we've heard that the Ukrainians are on the ground, but to what capacity we cannot specify. But I believe that the move of the Russian African Corps and the Malian armed forces in the Kidal region right now, it has been proactive. You know, the best the Ukrainians can do is to use the drone capability for probably surveillance, and they won't use a UAV because easily the air defenses are going to detect that through their radar and they're going to knock it out. But possibly they are using some very, very huge tactical drone, not on the class of the Babi Yaga, but something very, very huge. And also they equally using FPV and fiber optic drone. We've seen it on different occasions, but with this latest development by the Malian armed forces, we could be looking at a dramatic shift on the battlefield calculus on the line of contact. So ladies and gentlemen, let's move to the next information of the day. We have a situation in Mali where the Malian government are now putting a bounty on the head of some of this nefarious element in Mali. Ladies and gentlemen, here's a report.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Welcome to this special news flash regarding the government statement, the content of which follows. Ministry of Security and Civil Protection as part of the fight against terrorism and the preservation of national security. The government of the Republic of Mali informs the public that a financial reward is being offered to anyone who provides reliable, relevant, and actionable information leading to the arrest or neutralization of the individuals listed below. These individuals are actively being sought by the relevant authorities for their suspected involvement in the planning, organization, and execution of terrorist acts, as well as for endangering the safety of people and property within the national territory. The government urges the population to remain vigilant and to cooperate with the armed security forces by providing any information that could help in locating them. They are Mr. Iyad Ag Agali, also known as Abu Al-Fadel, 2 billion CFA francs. Second, Mr. Hamadoun Hassan Sankare Bari, also known as Amadou Kufa, also known as Mobo, 1 billion 500 million CFA francs. Mr. Abdoulaye Mahamadou Bekay Diallo, also known as Doulé Bib de Nampala, also known as Sidi, 1 billion 500 million CFA francs. For Mr. Algabas Agintala, the total amount is 1 billion CFA francs. Mr. Sedan Aghita, also known as Rothman Al-Hansari, also known as Abdel Hakim Al-Kidali, also known as Ag, also known as Al-Khairawani, 500 million CFA francs. Number 6, Mr. Bilal Ag Sharif, 500 million CFA francs. Number 7, Mr. Abderrahman Al-Batna Al-Jazairi, 500 million CFA francs. We remind you of the contents of the statement. As part of the fight against terrorism and the preservation of national security, the government of the Republic of Mali informs the public that a financial reward is being offered to anyone providing reliable, relevant, and actionable information leading to the arrest or neutralization of the individuals listed below. These individuals are actively being sought by the relevant authorities for their suspected involvement in the planning, organization, and execution of terrorist acts, and for endangering the safety of people and property on national territory. The government calls on the population to remain vigilant and to cooperate with the armed security forces by providing any information that could help locate them. Issued in Bamako on June 4th, 2026. That's all for this special news bulletin. Thank you for watching.
So, ladies and gentlemen, with the incentive that have been attached to credible intels that might lead to the capture of these individuals, I want to believe that, betrayal is always very, very conspicuous in the enemy camp. Something might happen and, who knows who we're going to get to first. And there are some faces in this picture that we've never ever seen before. They're so unpopular. But looking at the bounty, this guy has the same bounty with Amadou Kufar. It means that this is a very, very significant personnel of the enemies on the ground. But we'll continue to monitor the development, and if anything change on the battlefield, we'll make sure we'll bring you the information as fast as we can. Now we have another geopolitical shift in the alliance of Sahel, as the president of Niger has now traveled to Turkey, where he will be meeting President Erdogan. They will be having bilateral talks on security. According to the information we are hearing, Turkish troop might be deployed to Niger to stabilize the security situation in the Niger Republic. Ladies and gentlemen, and this will also go down to supply of equipment, training, and transfer of some valuable technology, and in return, Turkey is also going to benefit. Is according to the information they said, it's going to be a win-win partnership. But the alliance of Sahel through Niger has been a little bit closer to the West these days. Well, we don't know what that is all about. But, ladies and gentlemen, here's the video.
Esas duruş. Karar rahat. Onur kıtası. Selam. Dur. Kalk! مرحبا أسكر Tören bitmiştir Ekselons. Sol! Sol!
So ladies and gentlemen, you can kindly give me your opinion on what you think about this development. A lot of people have been asking me, Andre, what do you think about the terminal phase of this conflict? Is Mali gonna prevail? A lot of questions have been coming in the direction. What I can say about the situation is the best way you can guarantee tomorrow is by making sure you stand on business today. So when you look at the dynamics on the battlefield, you look at the attrition rate, you look at all the statistical metrics that you can use to judge the shift on the battlefield. I think militarily, first of all, I think the Malian armed forces have decided to approach the issue of insecurity on the Malian territory from a kinetic standpoint. Also, they are making some other moves that address the root cause of this problem. But the most effective that we have seen is the kinetic, approach. And based on the number of enemy casualty on a daily basis, I can guarantee you that if Mali continues to accomplish their military objective on the line of contact, and as long as they continue to make that progression, it's a guarantee that the entire territory of Mali within the shortest period of time is going to be safe again. So this is my opinion. You can give me what you think in the comments. It's your boy 7200 signing out and offset. But before I go, I want to thank the sponsors of this video, By Design, Flavor Blade. I want to say a very, very big thank you. Ignatius More Cryptography Talk, Gina Coleman. A lot of people are in the house that really stand in for the Android community. Ladies and gentlemen, much love and much respect. Salute.